Testing one, two, three. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. Please find your seats. Meeting time. This is a turnout. It's a rowdy crowd. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Everybody, this is to broadcast to the people joining online. Yeah, it's not to project. Hi, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to our January 2024 monthly meeting. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Listen up, guys. Listen up. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for joining us. This might just be the largest turnout that I've seen since I started a few years. It's a round of applause for you guys. It's a beautiful thing to be able to see so many folks come in with a passionate interest in native plants, our natural ecosystems. You know, it's a pleasure to know many of you guys and the work you do. And I know that you guys have the love. You know, we feel the love here for the native plants. As always, we're going to go through a few meeting announcements. I know everybody's itching to get to the main event, but there's a few important things coming up. But we'll be quick. By the way, we have some folks joining us via Zoom. One person all the way from Citrus County, or Citrus chapter rather. So we seem to be having, casting a wide net today. So first and foremost, once again, Happy New Year. Hope everybody's doing well. First and foremost, this Saturday, we have a Native Plant Day happening at John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. It's done by the state park, so it's not affiliated with us, although the keys are a part of the day chapter, so definitely something that we want to help promote. I'd like to thank Linka Woodbury, who is a DC FMPS member, who will be tabling and promoting the Day Chapter Native Plant Society at that event. If you'd like to go, John Pennekamp Park is a wonderful place. It's more of an oceanic setting, so a bit of a change of pace. I'm always in the uplands nowadays, so any opportunity to go coastal, I try to take them. It will run from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Our next monthly meeting will be Tuesday on February 27th, pretty late in the month. It will be titled Wild Florida, an Animal Odyssey, and will be presented by Kirsten Hines. On Friday, March 1st is the application deadline for the Florida Native Plant Society science awards, and conservation grants. If you have a project that you're interested in getting funded, you can feel free to send us an application. I think there's an application process on the FMPS website, but you can also email us your proposal at datefmps@gmail.com. On Saturday, March 16th, we have our annual Native Plant Day. This year is going to be held at 80 Barnes Park. I hope to see all of you guys there. It's going to be a really fun event. We do have a need for volunteers. So I have here a volunteer sign-up sheet that I will pass around. If you are interested in volunteering and helping out at the event, you can just put your name and a contact. So either email or phone, whatever you're comfortable with, or both if you're comfortable with it. And on the side, it also says if you are a maybe or an absolute yes for volunteering. I'll go ahead and pass it around with a pen. Additionally, if you have any native plants that you'd like to donate to the raffle table at Native Plant Day, please get them ready in pots. And if you need help transporting them, just let us know. You can also contact us likewise on our email address if you need some help. Lastly, so we have a hands-on / children's activities tent for Native Plant Day that we are trying to revamp a little bit this year. We need help with coordination with that. So if anybody would like to volunteer specifically for that, please talk with Patty Fairs. Patty, where are you? Back there? Okay. So if you have even just some suggestions for fun children's activities that involve native plants or native ecosystems, please let Patty or any of us know, and we'll pass the idea along. I'd like to take a moment to welcome our new members. We have quite a few. So welcome to the chapter to Kristen Huxley, Robert Newberger, Nicholas Matsumoto, Christina Lingvei, who is joining us as a student member, Manuel Marcial, Dorothy Parker, Justine Derez, and joining us from the Keys is Dean Hop. And thanks to Carrie Cleland and Sandra Nogene, who are rejoining the chapter as life members. Are any of these folks here with us? Show of hands. No new members here? Well, thank you. If you're joining us on YouTube, perhaps, just a warm welcome to those folks. A thank you to everybody who donated plants. The raffle table is my favorite part of the events, and it's always great to see how many cool plants and find their way here. So thank you if you donated plants for it. A little bit of housekeeping, just out of courtesy to our presenter, if you can kindly just have your cell phone on vibrate or on silent. And if you have, if you'd like more information, there's plenty more in the newsletter, including articles. And if you're interested in receiving our February newsletter, but you're not a member, there is a sign-up sheet in the back where you can put your email and we can send you that newsletter. All right, so we have now just a quick moment to review what plants we have at the raffle table. I'll let Raul take over. Thank you very much, Raul.
Be real quick. Starting at the end here. Blolly, a small hammock tree, sometimes pineland tree. I guess. Oh, so I should project. Yeah. All right, starting here. Blolly, a small hammock tree, pineland tree occasionally. This is labeled a Oraria cassinifolia. Yeah, cassinifolia. This is the pineland equivalent of the Bahama strongbark. It is a small bush, red berries, very sought after by birds sometimes. This is labeled Cocoloba uvifera, the sea grape, typically a tree of coastal hammocks, maritime hammocks, occasionally inland, not often. Several nice Stachydarpetas, blue porter weeds, very, very good butterfly attractants, tend to self-seed very readily. a small but nevertheless handsome erythrine. Now this is a coral bean. Does have thorns if you're not familiar. It's a small shrub, shrubby, maybe a tiny tree. Several nice looking Tillandsia utriculata someone has brought in. These are the biggest of the native Tillandsias. These will have flower spikes of 5-6 feet. I mean, and they're spectacular when they're big. These are babies. One peperomia, sort of it can be epiphytic, typically in the ground, shade, nice shade, slow growing. One Chamacrista fasciculata, one of a group of bean-like plants. These will get to about 3 or 4 feet. Very handsome flowers. They are annuals or maybe biennials. 2 clasping asters, Symphytrichum. They will be blooming in the fall. They bloomed late this year. Dry pine lands will tolerate wet. Very handsome dome, about 2 or 3 feet. In full sun, they'll be just covered with flowers. And Simmons aster, which is uncommon aster here. It's found mainly in wetter ground. Unlike most of our asters, this is rhizomatous. This will spread by runners. And these are actually cuttings of runners, and they're flowering just because they've been manipulated lately. A white stopper, nice tree. You can never have enough stoppers in your yard. This is the same. Actually, no, this is a Spanish stopper. This one has kind of a strange smell. Some people don't like it. Reminds them of skunks, but it's a nice tree nevertheless. A couple of nice wild coffees. These are nervosas, I guess. Psychotria nervosa, very handsome, fairly rapid growing, don't get terribly tall. Nice wildlife plant. A small but robust Jacomontia penthanthos, the sky blue morning glory. It's a sort of an ecotone plant from the Everglades mainly, but it does well in pinelands. A very small but promising Phlebodium aureum, a golden polypody fern. These you'll see them in the boots of sable palms, which is where they like to grow. They're pretty drought resistant. Just like stick them in the boots of a sable palm. A nice cheesy toe, Stylophanses. I want to say it's a butterfly host plant, but I can't remember which butterfly. Maybe somebody will correct me. 2 very handsome Sororia, Viola sororias, the native violet. They will be blooming in January, February, March, usually. A set of very nice yellow tops, Flaveria linearis, small shrub, flat top of yellow flowers, an aster, if you will. And 3 gaudas. We have not seen these, maybe once or twice here over the years. These are maybe 3 or 4 feet tall flower spikes that are actually very pretty. Dry land, scrubby, sandy, but they'll do well in pine rockland as well. Several small stenandriums that very handsome pink flowers, wetter ground, not very, they'll spread, but not very aggressive. And this is, I think, the first time we've had Virginia pepperweed, to my recollection, Lepidium. This is an almost weed-like plant that is a very nice plant. It's a host plant of a couple of insects I know of, maybe a butterfly, but also attracts a lot of things. When you see stuff on it all the time. 6 yellow necklace pod, 9, sorry, in little plugs. About half a dozen bloodberries, Veronia globosa, dense bush, clusters of pretty flowers, very, very good for attracting butterflies. And I think the second time we've seen pokeweed. Pokeweed, those of y'all who are from the deep south know that people eat this. It is toxic unless you prepare it right. It is a huge attractor of moth caterpillars further up north. And birds will eat the seeds as well. If you're planting for birds and all, this is a good plant. A marlberry hammock tree, small, but can get maybe about 15, 20 feet. They will actually propagate sometimes by runners. A nice Havana skullcap. a unlabeled, but this is a strangler fig. Yeah, it looks like a strangler fig. This actually is a great size to plant in your sable palm that you don't like very much. It will strangle. A nice Florida thatch palm, a small but promising lignum vitae, a Coenophyllum, the shrub thoroughwort. This is a nice and really an uncommon pineland plant. It's found in a few of the pinelands in the south part of the county, but it actually, anybody of Cuban ancestry here who's ever heard of abre camino, this is abre camino. It's used in Cuban, in Afro-Cuban voodoo, we'll call it in Santeria. A spiderwort, pretty flowers, much more common up in North Florida, but they do well once established in pinelands. They'll tolerate drought, believe it or not. A wild lime, spiny, several white stoppers, a couple of privet sennas, very nice, long-lived plants will attract all sorts of things. And I forgot, here is a sweet acacia. This is now called Bachelia farnesiana. This has really nice, sweet-smelling flowers, but it has nasty spines. So look carefully at its stems before you put your ticket in there. And yeah, all right. And is that it?
I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All righty. So if you'd like to get set up there. All righty. So our main event for the night. So our speaker today probably does not need an introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Roger Hammer is a professional naturalist and was the manager of Castle Hammock Nature Center for Miami-Dade County Park for 30 years. He received the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Award presented by the Dade Chapter FMCS in 1982 and numerous other awards from FMCS and other organizations, as well as an honorary Doctor of Science degree from FIU. Roger's first passion with Florida was finding and photographing Florida's native orchids, and during his travels he discovered 2 species of native orchids in Florida not previously known to occur in the state. In 1979, he discovered a population of the Tala butterflies, listed in 1965 as presumed extinct. He is the author of countless articles and also numerous books on Florida nature, which he will be selling. Roger is a longtime member of FMCS and lives in Homestead with his wife, Michelle. Thank you for being with us, Roger.
Well, once again, I feel like Elizabeth Taylor's ninth husband. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm not sure how to make it interesting. Well, how this book came about was I was sitting at home having a nice day and the phone rang, and it was this publisher that I'd been working with since 1999, I think. My first book was Everglades Wildflowers, and after that, it was just mostly wildflower guides, and then finally an exploring guide and a paddling guide. And they heard that I was a occasional survivalist instructor for the Discovery Channel's reality TV show, Naked and Afraid. And they were looking for somebody to write a foraging book for Florida. They already had a bunch of other foraging books out. There's one on Pennsylvania and Arizona and a whole bunch of other states, and none for Florida. So once they found out I was a survivalist instructor, they figured I must know what's poisonous and what's edible. So they asked me to write the foraging guide. And it covers all of Florida. And I did spend a lot of time up in North Florida and all, but for this presentation, I tried to concentrate more on the stuff that's found down here so that you would get a better idea of what's edible in this part of the world. And of course, it's a program for people who like to eat wild plants and pretend they taste good. There was a little bit of a glitch on the communication between the flash drive and the projector here, but we'll get by. So here's the new book, Finding, Identifying, and Preparing Edible and Medicinal wild foods in Florida. I just threw medicinal in there because there's a lot of plants down here that were used historically and as medicines. And the American Indian, the Seminole and Miccosukee, of course, I mean, they were our first foragers as far as modern day foragers. Paleo Indians were here too. So next. Just for your own knowledge, it is illegal to forage in Everglades National Park, Florida State Parks, and the Crew Marsh in Collier County, which I think is just totally bizarre. In Everglades National Park, you can catch fish and invite them home for dinner. In Florida State Parks, same deal. You can go fish all you want. In the Crew Marsh, you can go hunt deer, turkey, and wild hogs, but don't you dare get caught picking a blueberry. So I just don't get it. Plus, another thing is you're allowed to forage along the entire length of the Appalachian Trail. You're allowed to forage in almost all of the Western National Parks. So I don't know why Everglades is different than Yellowstone or Yosemite. So I don't get it. So before learning about edible wild plants, it is vitally important to first learn which plants are toxic, and some plants can cause skin rashes if touched, the poison ivy up there, while others can lead to vomiting, diarrhea, internal inflammation, organ damage, coma, and death. All the good stuff. So next. If you've never read this book, you should read it. There's also a movie about it. This guy, John Krakauer, he also wrote the book Into Thin Air about him climbing Mount Everest. And there was a guy named McCandless whose father wanted him to be an attorney. So he went through school to become an attorney just to make his father happy. And as soon as he graduated, he set fire to all of his money. And he went out west and lived with homeless people. And he got him a .22 rifle, and he decided, I'm going to go to Alaska and live off the land. So they found his decomposing body in a school bus where he was holed up. And what he did, there's 2 species of wild potatoes in Alaska, and one of them's edible and the other one can be fatal. And he picked the wrong one. Let me tell you a quick story about this tree here, the manchineel. You can find it down in Everglades National Park, especially in the Flamingo area. It's in the Florida Keys. If you Google manchineel, you're going to get tons of pages of the most poisonous tree on earth. There's even a Wikipedia page on it where it's the most poisonous tree on earth, and that's like laughable. A friend or now he's a friend, I guess. There's a guy that came by our house just a few days ago. He wrote a book on wild mushrooms, and he told me that just a few days prior, he had found this green fruit and didn't know what it was. He committed a cardinal sin, and he didn't know what it was, and he ate it, and it was a manchineel. And he said it tasted good. He says, but then he started getting the burning in his mouth. And he called a friend and sent him a photo of it and said, go to the hospital right now. But he didn't feel that bad, so he just stuck it out, and nothing, a few hours later, his mouth quit burning, and that was the end of it. So most poisonous tree on earth is not true. I one time picked a leaf off of one and just touched it to my wrist just so I could speak from experience. And it did make a big, way worse blistering rash than poison ivy or poisonwood does, and it lasted for weeks. So anyway, and sitting under a tree when it's raining can cause temporary blindness from just a little bit of sap washing down on your face and getting into your eyes. So and it's funny because in Everglades National Park, if you're a paddler, as you're going up Buttonwood Canal, there's manchineel trees hanging right over Buttonwood Canal. And I've actually seen other paddlers tied to the trees, tied there and hanging out, and I just paddle by them and go, have a nice day.
I won't see you later.
But the fruits can be fatal if eaten. But I mean, there's other trees out there, the ackee, I mean, that kills more people than manchineel ever thought about if you don't know when to eat it. So, okay. Spotted water hemlock. On one of the Naked and Afraid episodes I was working on, there was a spring run, and there was water hemlock and elderberry growing side by side, intermixed all down the spring run. Both of them have small white flowers that are produced in umbels like this. All parts of spotted hemlock will kill you. I've read, and I'm assuming it's true, I've read where 1/4 of an inch of stem is enough to kill a person. So that's our most poisonous tree in Florida, or not tree, but a big shrub. So, well, here's how you tell the difference. This is what I showed the two naked people on the program. Spotted water hemlock, if you look at the petals, they're notched at the tip, and they are not notched on elderberry. The leaves look enough alike, or if somebody could mistake the two, but that would be a real fatal error, because elderberry flowers, you can eat the flowers, you can eat the fruits, you can make a tea of the leaves. So pay attention to these two. Here's another one. This is non-native, but it's all over the place. I can't believe that you can still buy these. In fact, online, they still sell seeds. It's actually the source of castor oil, too. But the seeds of castor bean, the problem here is it's a toxin called ricin, and you don't even have to chew them. If you swallow one whole, the toxin is in the seed coat. So swallowing a seed could prove to be fatal. Next. And rosary pea, another abrin, is super toxic. The toxin is inside of the seed, and so you would have to bite into it and chew it up to be poisoned. My brother and I, growing up as kids, we used to put bunches of them in our mouth and spit them through straws at each other. And if you were to swallow one whole, it would just pass through your body without any issues. But crack one or eat one immature and you're a goner. Okay. All right. This is a fun plant. This is opposite leaf spot flower. Some botanists lately have dropped the oppositifolia variety repens and call it Acmella repens. On some of my wildflower walks, when we find these plants, I always ask people if they would like to taste the flowers. If you put a flower in your mouth and chew it up in just a short period of time, your entire mouth and tongue and everything will start tingling, almost like it's vibrating. And in Brazil, they actually put those flowers in dishes and stews and soups to give you that mouth tingling experience while you're eating. And they also call it alphabet plant in Brazil, because they think that if you give the flowers to babies to chew, that it helps them speak more easily. So if you ever go to Brazil, but anyway, this is a fairly, not real common, but frequent enough species you'll find out in open Everglades prairies, pine rocklands, especially in the margins of pine rocklands. So eat a flower if you will. Next. One of the actual good eating plants, of course, if you fry anything, it'll taste good. But you can dip leatherfern fiddleheads in batter and fry them, or you can just steam them as a green, or you can just eat them raw if you will. Eaten raw, they taste somewhat like asparagus, but it's hard to compare plants to other plants. But this is a big, huge fern. Everybody's probably seen it if you've ever visited any of our wetlands. So this is one of the good eating fiddleheads. So you just break it off, and either eat it on the spot or steam it or fry it. Southern amaranth. This is a very important plant elsewhere in the world than here, mostly in what they call third world countries. It's very nutritious. You can steam the leaves, or you can just add them to salads. The seeds also are sometimes ground and used in baking. And you can see it's very widespread all through. And down here, it's often an agricultural weed, at least along the edges of agricultural fields. There's 34 species of amaranth in Florida. There's one called Amaranthus spinosa that has spines on it, so that's not something you probably want to dine on out there. But anyway, this is one of the greens you can cook, amaranth. Common ragweed. You would not want to grow this purposely, mainly because of hay fever and all. In fact, it's kind of funny that goldenrods are a lot of people think goldenrods are what's causing their sneezing and their running eyes and all that. But ragweed flowers right when goldenrods are flowering, and goldenrods are more visible, so they think that it's the goldenrod doing it, but it's not goldenrod because goldenrod doesn't have airborne pollen. This does, and so this is the culprit. Here again, though, the American Indians, especially out west, took the leaves of this plant and rubbed them on poison ivy and other skin irritants. They'd also crush the leaves to get the juice and would rub it on skin lesions and whatnot for as medicine. The seeds of this are super high in protein, higher than soybeans. So this is a very, very important plant for American Indians in Florida. And you can eat the leaves, or you can steam them as a green. But again, I wouldn't think that anybody would want to grow it on their own. By the way, these maps that I'm showing here, these come from the Florida Plant Atlas from the University of South Florida. The green colored counties are only those counties where this plant has actually been vouchered. In other words, somebody pulled the plant up, pressed it in, and submitted it to an herbarium someplace in Florida. So just the fact that the Florida Keys aren't colored in doesn't mean it doesn't occur down there. It's just nobody's ever vouchered it there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that doesn't make a lick of sense, but yeah, I guess. Okay. Pond apple. On another Naked and Afraid episode I was working on directly on the other side of Highway 29 from the Fakahatchee Swamp, that naked couple had it pretty good because I found pond apples and fruit for them to eat. And boy, they thought, wow, this is great. Weirdly enough, the bark and the sawdust of pond apple can give you skin irritation. I've never had it happen, but I've read that. And also the seeds, if you were to grind them up, the powder can cause temporary blindness if you were to get it in your eye. The pond apple is related to some of the better tasting fruits in the world, like cherimoya and the custard apple and the soursop. But these aren't like rated really high on the list of like everybody wants to go grow it to eat. But they're pretty good if you just want to eat them. And you can also add pond apple to flesh, clean the seeds out. You can add that to an apple pie recipe with the apples and use them that way. Next. This thing is really good to eat. These are the tubers of American groundnut, Apios americana. You can see it's scattered all around in Florida. I've never actually seen it in Dade County, but it's been vouchered here. But up farther north, and especially in the central part of the state, it's very common. And you just dig down under the ground and pull up these tubers, and you cut them open. They taste almost identical to a white potato. And they're crunchy, and in a blind taste test, I doubt you would be able to tell this from a white potato eating it. So you could bake them or steam them just like you do potatoes, but I just prefer to eat them raw. They're really good and crunchy. Okay. Marlberry. That's a corruption of an earlier name, marbleberry, but I don't know where that name even came from either. But the fruits of marbleberry are pretty tasty. They're a little bit, I don't want to say sour, but they've got a kind of a bite to them when you eat them. But I'm sure most everybody's probably seen this plant or have it in their yard. But they're taste one sometimes. They're pretty good. Eaten out of hand. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in your pocket. This is a common one. There's a whole bunch of species of Asimina, and there's also hybrids in Florida. Asimina triloba is the pawpaw of commerce. But this one, I photographed this one over in the Crew Marsh, but it's around. I've never seen it in Everglades National Park, but I've seen it all over the place, everywhere else. In the Crew Marsh is very common. But again, here you just cut the fruits open and eat them, and they're really tasty, very mildly sweet, but very pleasant to eat. Next. Aha. One man's weed is another man's wildflower. The new growth of Spanish needles, they're kind of resiny tasting. And the way to cure that is to clip off the new growth, wash them, put them in water, and put them in the refrigerator and let them sit in cold water overnight, and that'll remove quite a bit of that resiny tang. It contains 50% more iron than spinach does. So this plant is super, super high in iron. And if you're into attracting butterflies, there's every butterfly in your yard is going to visit these flowers, and it's also the larval host of the dainty sulfur butterfly. So I just mow around patches of them in our yard. We live on an acre down near Homestead, and I just mow around patches when they're in flower and just leave them and let them do their thing and mow the rest. But good, either survival food or just, bringing them in and eating them, like a bowl of them there. Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's supposed to stop. And if you have a really small cut, you can go out and break off a stem and take the juice and wipe it on it, and it'll stop bleeding almost instantly. Locust berry, I guess you'd probably have to be naked and afraid to enjoy them. Well, you don't have to be afraid. I've eaten these things, and they're like, oh, okay. If you were a survivalist or something like that, you would eat them. But of the Malpighiaceae, the family there, it's one of the lesser good tasting ones. But you can see it's only found in Miami-Dade and Monroe County Keys. Okay. Here's another one to eat with some caution. A lot of people like to eat these, and they don't taste all that good, just eating them out of your hand. They make a very, very good jelly, though, and that's what I would recommend doing with elderberry, beautyberry flower or fruits. And but it's in the verbena family, and it's hard to say if it has any toxins in there or not. I've read some things about it, but I don't know if they're true or not. But people do eat them. Next. The bird pepper is in South Florida, and in fact, I've seen them in Matheson Hammock and Everglades National Park. The jalapeno is rated at 7,000 to 9,000 Scoville units on the heat scale. The bird pepper is 90,000 Scoville units, but that pales in comparison to like the ghost pepper and the Carolina Reaper that are over 1 million Scoville units. But I was asked one time what good are bird peppers, and I said, well, they improve your memory. And this lady, she goes, oh wow, that's incredible. She says, how does it do that? And I said, well, if you eat a bunch of them, I said, the next day you go to the bathroom, you're going to remember you ate them. They burn going in and they burn going out. But these are tiny little peppers, and the reason they call them the bird pepper is mockingbirds, if you grow this plant, and they get about this tall, and if you grow it, mockingbirds will swarm on that plant and pick every fruit and gulp them down whole. So they're not feeling any of the heat. If they had any internal parasites or anything like that, man, they're doomed. But that's why they call it the bird pepper, because it does attract a lot of birds, most especially mockingbirds. Okay. They have deemed the papaya to be native to Florida, and that occurred after they were doing a dig in Pine Island over in southwest Florida, and they found papaya seeds in a layer that dated back to 300 AD. So they were here but notice that the wild papayas only get, maybe tennis ball size or something like about that size. The cultivated varieties, get big on, so. But anyway, these are as good as any other papaya. I photographed these in Everglades National Park, just the plant there. You can see it's fairly widespread in Florida. Okay. And cocoa plum. The one on the left, you'll probably hear a lot of nurserymen talk about red-tip cocoa plums. You'll see them growing in hedges. And what they like about the red-tip cocoa plum, the purple fruited one, is when they prune the hedge, all the new growth comes out red. So it's a red top on your hedge. The other two produce green new growth. So they don't like those. But notice too that the purple and the red-tip cocoa plum, if you will, the fruits are smaller, they're oblong. You get out on the coast and you start seeing these big round fruited ones. And all of them taste just like a marshmallow in a way. I mean, the texture is like a marshmallow. They have a very sweet, really good flavor to eat. The white one there I photographed in Crandon Park. The center one I photographed at Silent Native Nursery down near Homestead, where they grow it as a hedge there. But those are the three forms of the native cocoa plum, and all of them are really good to eat. Plus, if you dry the seeds, take the pulp away and actually dry the seeds and take an ice pick and spear the seeds on the ice pick and light them on fire, and you can walk around just like it's a big candle. They just burn and burn and burn. I was a kid at one time. Okay. Sea grape, of course, everybody knows this. I grew up in Cocoa Beach, and so it was commonplace up there. And my grandmother used to, make sea grape jelly, just like that. So you can either make jelly, you can make pies, you can make jam, you can make wine, or you can eat them out of hand. They're male and female plants, so if you're going to grow it, if you're going to grow some in your yard for the fruits, make sure you get a female. Okay. There is a drink that they make in Jamaica. It's called mabi. And they take the bark on soldier wood, flakes off in big, kind of like in sheets about this long or shorter. And they break off the bark and they mix it. They put it in water and boil the bark. The bark is here. They add anise, star anise, cloves, cinnamon sticks, and bay leaf. Now, I made some, and there it is. And I think if you left the bark out, you would have no freaking idea, because I mean, it's got cloves and cinnamon. I mean, it's got everything that there is. But anyway, the Jamaicans put the bark in there and call it mabi. An interesting thing about this tree, to change the subject real quick, is my next door neighbor used to be the famed ornithologist John Ogden. And he and I were asked by Florida Audubon Society to not only go out and look at native trees that attract birds, but why those birds were being attracted to that tree, and which trees attracted the most birds. And we were mostly interested in warblers. That tree right there was absolutely the top #1 bird attractor that we found, especially for warblers. And what were they doing up there? They were eating the flowers. So if you're a birder and you want to attract a lot of warblers, plant soldierwood. About 25 feet or so, 20, 25 feet, not real big. And you can make tea. Okay. Yeah. The first time I ate toothache grass, it felt like I was chewing on a caterpillar. And they come down to Palm Beach County, but I have seen it in Broward, though it's just not been vouchered there. But if you chew the seed heads on this grass, I mean, it numbs your gums and numbs. I mean, if you had a toothache and you're out in the woods and, you know, found these, man, you chew it and that would be the end of your toothache for a while. So. Lancewood, they've changed the name to Dambernea from Nectandra. Same family as the avocado. And if you look at those fruits, they look kind of like little tiny, tiny little avocados. And they're somewhat edible, but the leaves are super fragrant. So you can take the leaves and crush them up and make a tea out of them or use them in, you know, to flavor other dishes. Very common tree down here, one of the more common hammock trees. Okay. Believe it or not, I photographed this persimmon on Key Biscayne in Crandon Park. I had no idea. You know where the Biscayne Nature Center is? If you walk the trail up there, you walk right past this tree, this persimmon tree. Now, to eat persimmons, they have to be really, really, really ripe. So it's best to pick them up off the ground and eat them, or pick them off the tree when they're that color and take them home until they get really mushy. There are incidents when people have eaten them unripe and they had to actually go to the hospital and have them surgically removed from their intestines because they're so astringent, everything just tightens up around them. If you've ever eaten a persimmon that's not ripe, they're super, super astringent. So make sure that they're perfectly ripe. So you can either eat them out of hand, you can use them in pies or whatever. Next. Shortleaf fig, same with strangler fig. You can eat those little figs. I suggest you eat them after dark so you don't see the little wasp larvae inside the fruits. Yeah, there's a small little tiny little wasp that are actually the pollinators of both of them. In our yard, we have 2 of them. Both trees are probably around 40, 45 feet. And I mean, you can't look up there during the spring migration and not see warblers running amok, vireos, especially cedar waxwings. Cedar waxwings swarm into these trees. And it's so I love to watch them. They'll sit on a branch and the one bird down here will be around where all the fruits are and it will pick the fruits and they pass them down. I know. So they're nice little birds, but yeah, this tree every year the cedar waxwings it's like a tornado of birds that swarm into them. Yeah, they just give them plenty of room. That's okay. Chew stick. It's not edible, but you can chew on the stems and they fray and foam up a little bit and you can brush your teeth with them. So if you're out there and you need to brush your teeth, why, there you go. It's so funny though, when I was photographing this plant, I went to John Pennekamp State Park because I knew where there were plants along the Grove Trail in John Pennekamp in Key Largo. So I'm down there and I'm getting ready to set up to take this picture. And I heard this lady scream. I mean, and she screamed like Jack the Ripper had just leapt on her back. I mean, she was terrified, this terrifying scream. I thought, oh my God. So I go running around there and she looks at me and she says, "Sir, look out, there's a crocodile." And I'm like, a crocodile in the hammock here, you know. I thought, that's weird. I said, where? Right there. And she's pointing down. I said, ma'am, that's an iguana. And I said, where are you from? And she goes, Ohio. So anyway, that's my memory of taking that photo of Chew Stick. I'll tell you another real quick one because it happened just before all that. I was in Everglades National Park in the Pineland Trail. There's a Pineland Trail. It's just a loop trail. So I'd walked it and I wanted to check on a little terrestrial orchid out there. And so when I came back here in the parking lot, there's this lady and her husband and they saw me and this lady comes running up just all excited and she's going, sir. And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, we just heard a Florida panther. I went, oh, that's pretty cool. You know, I said, I've heard them before, you know. And she says, hang on, we recorded it on our phone. So she plays it and I hear, caw. I said, ma'am, that's a crow. and she goes, really? Oh, we thought it was a Florida panther. Ohio. St. John's worts, there's about 30 some odd species of hypericums. So all of them are pretty much the same. You have to be careful with, you can actually buy St. John's wort in capsule form, but you got to be really, really careful because if you make a tea out of this or if you eat the capsules and whatnot, you'll become sun sensitive. So if you go out in the sun, you can get sunburn really, really easy. It makes you highly more susceptible to sunburn. But again, you can make a tea out of the leaves. You can eat the flowers. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of different species. This particular species I photographed at the Crew Marsh in Collier County, but be a little bit cautious about hypericums in general. The Hoon holly, here again, this would be survival food at best. They look a lot better than they taste. But this was out in Everglades National Park, and you can see it's widespread all through the state. Farther north in Florida, there's one called Ilex vomitoria. And where that name came about is it's super, super high in caffeine. I mean, really high. And the Seminoles used to make what they called the black drink. And they would boil the leaves of it and then boil it down to make it really strong. And they would fast for like a week or so. And then they would drink a lot of it and they would just puke to no end. So that's where it got that name vomitoria, because it'll make you vomit. If you drink too much of it when it's strong and you're hungry, go ahead. Oh, there it is. Ilex vomitoria. I forgot I put it in here because it doesn't occur down this far south. But that's what it looks like. And there they are. I heard that somebody had put a plant over here of this on the table. This is pretty weedy, but it's a nice little weed. The flat pods there taste very peppery. And so a lot of people will purposely put them in your salad or cook with them and in lieu of adding pepper. But just stripping those little seed pods off and chewing on them, they're very pleasantly peppery. All right.
They do get the pictures, Roger. Just keep going, buddy. Might be the, oh yeah, murder.
Well, there's a guy that gets coronavirus and they put him in the hospital room by himself and put a mask on his face, and the nurse comes in to check on him and she hears him say through his mask, "Are my testicles black?" And she goes, "That's kind of weird." So she goes up and checks him out and she goes, "No, sir, your testicles are not black." And the guy freaks out and he pulls the mask off his face and he screams, "I said, are my test results back?" So what? Well, you have several options. You know, tie a chain to it and just rip it out of the ground. But if you're worried about soil disturbance, cut it off at ground level and spray it with Garlon 4 or Garlon 3A if it's cut stuff treatment, or you can just walk up to the living tree and spray it with Garlon 4 and kill it if you're not opposed to herbicides. But I mean, I would prefer to try to just rip it out. I used to work for Miami-Dade Parks for 30 years, and after Hurricane Andrew, the nature center where I worked got destroyed, so they moved me over to natural areas management for a while. And so I told the workers, since we were short on funding, I said, go out there in the winter time when the female Brazilian peppers were fruiting, so you can target the females and leave the males for another day. And before I knew it, these guys had made T-shirts with magic markers, and they wrote, "Roger said, kill all the women."
Do you still have one?
Yeah, I've been trying to get on Everglades National Park's case because there's trees, the big, huge female trees fruiting like crazy right on the side of the road. I've passed them for 10 years, and I don't know, you know, I need to go talk to the superintendent and see what's going on. Okay. Well, I can tell you about when I received the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Award from the Dade chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society. And Marjorie was the one that handed the award to me at Fairchild Tropical Garden. And she invited me to her cottage there on Biscayne Bay in Coconut Grove. And so when I went into her house and I sat down in the living room, she walked into the kitchen and she yells out of her kitchen. She yells out, she goes, "Do you want something to drink?" And I said, "I'll just have whatever you're having, Marjorie." And I'm thinking she's going to walk out with a glass of water or some iced tea or something like that. And I should stop here and tell you that she was 92 at the time and I was 38. And she comes walking out with a bottle of whiskey and 2 shot glasses. And she didn't sip her whiskey like a proper woman. She slugged it down like a cowboy on Gunsmoke. And it was hard to keep up with her. She was just glugging, shots, and after about 6 shots, she was looking pretty hot. Yay. So this is a wild dilly. It's in the same genus as the sapodilla or sapodilla. And this is a coastal tree. Well, I'll keep talking about it. It's a coastal tree. You've probably all eaten sapodillas at one time or another, but the wild dilly tastes exactly the same, only they're very, very much smaller. You'll see it mostly in the Florida Keys. I can't think of any place I've ever seen it on the mainland that I can remember, but mostly in the Florida Keys, where it's not an uncommon tree, especially in Long Key and Bahia Honda down that way. So we've got one in our yard, but it's never ever, it flowers like crazy. It's never once fruited, and it's big. It's like.
But you could eat it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It's as good as a sapodilla or sapodilla, whatever. And what I used to do with children when we would go to Camp Owasso Bower, Dade County Park, there's a big sapodilla tree there. and I would pick an unripe fruit and let the white sap drip into my hand and form a little puddle. Then you take your finger and you stir it, and the chicle in there, it turns to like chewing gum, and you can grab it and pull it apart, you know, and the kids went nuts over that. So it contains chicle, so that's where they came up with chiclets. And here we have creeping cucumber, Melothria pendula. You can eat the green unripe fruits, but it says right in the literature, if you eat the ripe purple fruits, it will cause, and I quote, explosive diarrhea. But we have this in our yard, just a little bit on the weedy side, you know, if you grow it. But you can see it's found all over the place. But they're not bad when they're green. Okay. And of course, you know, our native red mulberry, you know, goes without saying that you can eat those right off the tree, or you can make mulberry pie, or you can make wine out of them, or whatever you want to do. It's in some of the hammocks in Miami-Dade County. I've seen it in some of the hammocks over by the airport, by Kendall Samiami Airport. But yeah, they're super popular with the birds. And Simpson stopper, all these stoppers, you know, they have edible fruits. These aren't, they're okay. I mean, Suriname cherry, if you've ever eaten those are really good, but it's not native here. But these are pretty tasty. Okay, next. And here again, you know, cactus fruits. I don't know if you've ever seen the what do they call those? The dragon fruit groves out in the Redland. They grow acres and acres and acres of them. But the prickly pear fruits, you first take a knife and cut the skin off, because there's these little tiny spines on them that can irritate you. But the fruits are quite edible. Not bad to eat at all. Plus, you can cut the skin off the pads and fry them. Yellow wood sorrel, oxalis. Be real careful with these if you're prone to kidney stones. Those are caused by oxalic acid or oxalates. And look at the genus. It's in the genus Oxalis, and it's in the Oxalidaceae along with the carambola. So that would be another fruit you wouldn't want to eat a lot of if you're prone to kidney stones. But the leaves of the native Oxalis here, and the pink flowered non-native one that's weedy around here, they got an odd flavor. They're kind of bitter, but pleasantly bitter. You know, so people put them in salads and whatnot just for a little change of taste. Okay. And maypop, the edible passion flower is Passiflora edulis, and it gets a big golf ball sized fruit. These are a little bit smaller than those, but they're quite tasty. Next. And our little native corky stem passion flower, you can eat these too. They're not as tasty, but they're okay. And red bay, you can make a tea. Just pick the leaves. You can use these just like you would regular bay leaves in dishes. Next. This is Walter's ground cherry. Yeah, the ground cherry, you've seen tomatillas in the grocery store, same genus, same thing. So you can eat those. So we'll just go ahead with this. Here again, be very, very careful here. There's the ground cherry again. Or husk tomatoes, you'll see, you know, because they're inside that husk. And these are pretty good to eat. I photographed this at Larry and Penny Thompson Park, but it's fairly common around. Here again, be super careful with this. If you you have to know how to cook it to make it edible. If you were to eat the stem or leaves raw, the older leaves, especially the older leaves, they can kill you. So you pick the brand new growth, steam them, the water off, pull it back up, pour the water off, and steam it again. It's a song, but it has the wrong name, Salad Annie. It's not salad, it's salad. It's S-A-L-L-E-T. That's the Cajun name for it. It's poke salad. But birds like to eat the fruits on it. So, but just be a bit careful eating it. Wild pennyroyal, I photographed this in Larry and Penny Thompson Park too. This makes a very, very nice tea, herbal tea. Again, though, it can be way stronger than you might want, so you just dilute it is all you need to do. But I don't know why. I guess it's difficult to grow. I always like to say that Yule Gibbons famously said that even parts of the pine are edible, and he's dead now. No, I'm only joking. But anyway, they've done some botanical changes on this thing too. This used to be Pinus ellioti variety densa, and then they decided it was not ellioti. Ellioti has 3 leaves per bundle, and densa has 2. So they use that characteristic as a means of separating the 2 species. So this is the one that's in South Florida within that range you see there. Slash pine comes from, if you go up to Georgia especially and you drive through the pine, commercial pine grove, you'll see they make the slash in the tree, and here somebody used a coffee, but they put a cup down here to get the sap to drain into it, and they use that sap to make varnish and turpentine and other products. That's where the name slash pine came from. But you can make a tea out of the leaves of pine. The common plantain, and you probably know that word plantain by the banana relative, but this is a true plantain in the genus Plantago. This is kind of weedy around, you know. This was, I photographed this in Everglades National Park, Plantago major. And it's a very common plant in other parts of the world as a green to steam and eat. Next. And rosy fleabane or rosy camphorweed. This also makes a nice tea. The leaves are super, super fragrant. Old timers used to put the leaves in bedding to deter fleas, and hence the name fleabane. Next. And common purslane. Here's another. This is purslane is super, super nutritious. Super high in linoleic acid, or however you pronounce that. But this is extremely important plant in other parts of the world as a food item. One of the top ones, and super nutritious. And also it lowers the cholesterol levels in eggs. So if you have chickens, feed them portulaca and you'll get lower cholesterol eggs. Here's a winged sumac, that group of fruits right there that I got out of a Dade County park. I took I cut those off and just put them in a pot like they were and boiled them and made that glass of tea there, and it was very pleasant. So winged sumac tea. Okay. I forgot what state park Michelle and I went to photograph this thing. It was upstate a little ways, but this is swamp dock. And here again, this is, you know, you hardly hear of anybody, you know, eating it in this country, but in other countries, that's a major food item there. Swamp dock, Rumex floridanus. Next. And of course, our so-called state tree, even though most people don't say palms aren't trees, but it kills the tree to harvest the heart of palm. So, be about that. But, if there's a hurricane and one topples, pretty much not all palms, but like fishtail palms, they burn your mouth if you try to eat their heart. But after Hurricane Andrew and knocked down some big royal palms on our street, I went out there with a chainsaw and got these big old giant hearts of palm and had those to eat. But anyway, you can eat the hearts of palm. Okay. And there's our friendly elderberry again. You can see elderberry pie and elderberry wine. We have one in our yard growing in a man-made stream in our yard, and if you grow it, you probably have to plant it in a place where it has reliably wet soil or a place where you could water it frequently. And you can take the flower heads and just dip them in batter and fry them, and then they're really good to eat. Same with cabbage palm. You can eat the heart of saw palmetto. Jonathan Dickinson once wrote about saw palmetto fruits. He said they taste like rotten cheese steeped in tobacco juice. I thought, wow, that's not very appetizing. Yeah, oh yeah, bears love those. Okay. I guess I should mention that there is a medicine for maintaining a healthy prostate for men. Sea purslane, the leaves are very salty tasting, so you can add that to dishes in lieu of putting salt in it. Or you can add them to salad to give you a little bit of a salty tang to your salad. Very, very nice to just kind of nibble on as you're walking around looking false mastic. These fruits are that name fetidissimum. I don't know if that comes from the flowers smelling fetid or if it's the fruits that fall on the ground by the tons and rot or decompose, and they're pretty odoriferous when you walk by them. But those fruits are pretty good to eat. Next. And greenbrier. This is Smilax auriculata here. If you just break off the stem, the new growth on the stem, you can either eat them raw, and they taste, again, very much like spinach or like asparagus, or you can steam them and eat them that way, either way, either raw or. So when you walk by, just snap off a piece. And here, during when we couldn't stand English the English anymore, and we fled over here, the first thing they did over there in the Boston Tea Party was throw all the tea in Boston Harbor, because of all the taxes they were placing on imported tea. And so the early settlers were looking for a substitute for tea, and they found Solidago odora, and that became the most popular tea in the country for the longest time. It was so popular they were exporting it. So this particular species of goldenrod makes a very, very nice tea, and there's a glass of tea that we made. Cattails, any species, doesn't have to be Domingensis, but any species, you just pull the center bud out and break off the outer leaves, and you get that center core there, and it's pretty good to eat. Florida betony, those look kind of like some kind of an underground worm or something, but I've never seen it in Dade County, but it's been collected here. It's a roadside weed elsewhere in Florida, and they say do not grow this plant because it will spread so rapidly that you'll cuss the day you ever introduced it. But if you're a forager and you want to harvest those underground rhizomes, they taste pretty good. They're crunchy, and they have a nice flavor. Next. Shiny blueberry. There's a bunch of vacciniums that are found farther north, but this is the common one down this far south. I photographed this at the Crew Marsh in Collier County. They taste just like blueberries. Okay. And grapes, this is muscadine grape or Vitis rotundifolia. I photographed this one in Everglades National Park along the Royal Palm Hammock. But all of our native grapes are edible. They're not anywhere remotely close as big as the commercial grapes, but they're still good to eat. And one of my very favorites, hog plums, Limonia americana. This is a hemiparasite. It parasitizes the roots of other trees, but it also produces its own leaves and photosynthesizes. And those fruits are really good to eat. And I photographed this one along the Old Ingram Trail in Everglades National Park, but it's all over the state. I've seen a lot of them in the Fakahatchee swamp. So this is a super good one to grow. Anyway, I think this might be the last one here. Spanish bayonet, the petals on these flowers are good to eat. You can just pick off the petals and eat them, but they're kind of hard to harvest because those those leaves are super spiny. But if you can get to them, the petals are really good. Yeah, get a ladder. Okay, that's it. Any questions out there? Yes, but again, it kills the tree to harvest them. So you have to find a place, be somewhat ethical. I mean, if they're bulldozing a property for development, they're knocking down the cabbage palms and go harvest them. But yeah, there aren't many palms that are not edible. And again, the fishtail palm has got some issues. Yeah.
Gopher apple?
Yeah, and it tastes just like a cocoa plum. And the gopher tortoise is like it too. That's where that name came from. It's a lower growing, it's a little tiny rhizomatous little shrubby thing in pine lands.
It reminds me of kind of the same situation that we have out west with some of the hallucinogenics, and I was wondering if any of these plants have those kind of properties, hallucinogenic properties.
No. There's a few plants around here. Well, the heavenly blue morning glory has lysergic acid, and there's turbina corymbosa, another morning glory relative. But yeah, you don't hear too much about. Although on one of the Naked and Afraid programs I was doing there, it was on a 9,000 acre cattle ranch up, and all the patties, the cow patties. So I asked the film director, I said, should I point those mushrooms out? And she says, what are those? And she says, are they edible? And I said, well, yeah.
Show you what.
They were, and she goes, oh Lord, no. Kumbaya around the campfire the whole 3 weeks. That program is for 3 weeks. They strip naked, they meet, and then they have to survive for 3 weeks without. So yeah. It's where all the leaves are coming together in the crown. It's right in the center bud in there is what you're after. So you have to cut it off and then start stripping it away to where you get down to the center bud, but it's not down in the trunk at all. It's up in the top in the crown.
They never invited you to be a participant on Naked and Afraid, Roger?
My mama didn't raise a Yes. Yeah, there's a couple of there's somebody in the House and also a companion bill in the Senate where they want to remove the mockingbird as our state bird and make it the flamingo. And historically, way back in the 1800s, there, I mean, I've read, since I wrote that, I read Audubon reports of how, hundreds of flamingos, blah, blah, blah. They may have nested here way back in the early or mid to the late 1800s, but they don't nest here at all now. So they're gone most of the year. They're here in the wintertime, and then a lot of them are escapees from zoos and stuff. You can see the bands on their legs. So, I mean, I don't know, the way Florida's getting, maybe the cuckoo should be there. Yeah.
Next month.
Well, I can get y'all on. You don't have to be afraid. Yeah. Do I what? No, not really. I mean, back when I worked as a natural, I was the manager of Castle Hammock Nature Center. It's a 120-acre reserve in down near Homestead, and we used to teach all kinds of different classes. Homeschool, especially homeschool classes. We had different topics, and they would come for one day a week for 6 weeks in different subjects. We taught, and then we led field trips all over the place, and canoe trips. We had canoes that we offered, and then I got the county to buy eight. That all the park managers were told to come up with different ways to bring in money for the park, and so I got them to buy 8 Tarpon 160 fishing kayaks, and I was leading kayak fishing tours on Biscayne Bay, and so I was all the talk about in the supervisors meetings that they're paying Roger to go fishing.
Favorite canoe.
It's funny too, at one of those meetings they asked me, they said, I guess my reputation preceded me, and they said, Roger, do you have a joke that you could tell that's appropriate for the audience here? And the county manager was in the audience, and all this big wigs, and I yelled out, what's white and sleeps 6? And they said, what? And I said, a county crew cab. I was not popular. Yeah, any other questions out there? I've eaten them and they're not that pleasant. But again, if it was survival issues, sure, you could eat them. They don't contain caffeine, surprisingly. You'd think that something named wild coffee.
Can you get sick though? Psychotria, nervosa.
Well, nervosa is referring to the leaves, the nerves and the leaves. But
yeah.
They
used to brew them to get high.
Well, that was Psychotria viridis. And actually, Psychotria viridis is a part of ayahuasca, the hallucinogen that they used to, the Aztec priests used to take ayahuasca to lose their fear of their gods when they sacrificed virgins for their gods. So they used ayahuasca for that purpose. But I don't understand how they even found out about these, because you have to take a liana called Banisteriopsis. And to make ayahuasca, you've got to strip the bark off the Banisteriopsis, scrape the inner part of the cambium layer off in the scent and from the back of the bark, and then and then you mix something about Psychotria viridis with it, and slaked lime, and I mean, who in the world's out there in the jungle figuring all that out, and then they ate it and went, wow, but yeah, they're edible but not eatable. So any other questions? I appreciate you having me here tonight.
Thank you very much, Roger. And are you gonna keep selling? Yeah, your books.
Yeah, I brought some books that I've written over the years. There's Everglades Wildflower. There's also